Marco had not always been as he appeared at that moment. Thin, well-groomed, with carefully chosen clothes and a confident look. In fact, for most of his life he had struggled with excess weight, with the judgment of others and with that inner voice that told him he was never enough. It had not been easy, but he had done it. With sacrifices, discipline, and a lot of solitude, he had managed to transform his body and, at least in part, his mind too. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our stories. It was during that period that he met Alessia, a brilliant woman full of charm and ambition, who seemed to know exactly what she wanted from life. They had met at work, in an advertising agency in Bologna. She had just been promoted to head of the creative department. He managed the quality control of the projects. It took only a few exchanges at the coffee machine, a few shared lunch breaks, and they both understood that there was something more. At first, everything was wonderful. Alessia admired Marco's calm, his kindness, that polite way of doing things that gave her a sense of security. And Marco was fascinated by her determination, by her strength. They seemed to complete each other. After a few weeks, it was Alessia who suggested they move in together. Marco hesitated, but then accepted. "We're adults," she told him. "Why wait?" But what Marco couldn't know was that the real test was yet to come. Living together also brought with it a certain routine. Evenings spent on the couch, dinners ordered on the fly, lazy Sundays. And with them, slowly, Marco began to gain weight. Nothing excessive, just a few pounds, but enough to make old insecurities resonate in him. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he felt that voice he had worked so hard to silence resurface. Alessia was the first to notice, and also the first to comment on it. At first, she did it with a laugh. "Honey, I think you're becoming a teddy bear." Then, little by little, the jokes became more biting, more cutting, more cruel. "Nothing fits you anymore. You let yourself go. You look like a middle-aged employee." Marco tried to laugh with her. He blushed, shrugged, changed the subject. But inside, every word was a sharp blade. Because it wasn't just Alessia talking. It was all the voices from the past. The schoolmates who made fun of him. The people who avoided him. Those who looked at him with contempt. And now, she too. The woman who said she loved him. The pain wasn't just from the words, but from the way they were said, with contempt, with annoyance, as if her imperfect body embarrassed her. "Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? You look like someone who's given up on everything," she told him one day after they'd argued over something trivial. Marco remained silent, but something inside broke. He then decided to join the gym. He did it more for her than for himself. He thought, "If I get better, maybe she'll look at me with those eyes she used to have." But the gym was hell. Every mirror gave him the image of a body he hated. Every piece of equipment seemed to judge him. Alessia, on the other hand, felt at home. Smiling, confident, she flirted with the personal trainers and distanced herself further and further from him. Sometimes, during their shared sessions, she acted as if she didn't even know him. She corrected him in front of others, looked at him with superiority. There was no more sweetness, only judgment. Marco tried to talk to her. He told her he felt uncomfortable, that he needed her support. She burst out laughing. The usual whining. "Is it my fault if you're lazy and fat?" Then she left him there, between the dumbbells and the treadmills, with his heart crumbling like thin glass. Their distance became an abyss. Alessia went out more and more often. She said she had commitments. Marco, suspicious, one evening decided to surprise her outside the gym, and that's where he saw her. With someone else, one of the trainers. They were kissing. He remained at a distance, petrified. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He went home in silence without saying anything. When Alessia came back, he asked her where she had been. "With friends," she answered dryly. "I saw you, Alessia," he whispered. "I wanted to surprise you, but I received it." She snapped. She accused him of being morbid, obsessive, a failure. "You suffocate me with your insecurities," she screamed. "You're just a weak man." And then she ended their relationship, throwing words at him that Marco would remember for years. The next day she left, slamming the door, leaving him only silence and her wounds. Marco sank into an even darker solitude. For weeks he almost never went out. He stopped eating well. He stopped sleeping. He thought it was all his fault, that he wasn't enough and that he never would be. And yet, it was in that silence that he began to rebuild himself. One morning, getting up to go to the kitchen, he saw the reflection of his face in the window glass, and he understood something. It wasn't him who was wrong. It was the choice to share his life with someone who mortified him, who didn't know how to love in fragile moments. He started over slowly. Short outings, small gestures of care. He read and walked in the park. He went back to eating carefully, not to lose weight, but to love himself. And he stopped going to the gym. He didn't need it anymore. He was learning to live with the body he had and to treat it with respect. Time passed, and with it, the pain. Marco was no longer the same man as before, but not even the wounded man of a few months before. He had scars, yes, but also new awareness. Then, one day, he received an email. The sender was Alessia. She wanted to meet him. She said she wanted to talk, remember the good times. Marco, curious but lucid, accepted. They met in a bar and she immediately began to praise him. "You've changed. You seem calm, centered," and then, lowering her voice, "I'd like to get back with you." He looked at her. She was the same woman, but she no longer had power over him. "You see, Alessia," he said in a calm voice, "I will never forget what you did to me. Not so much for the words, but for how you made me feel. And now I know that I no longer want to live with the fear of not being enough for someone." He stood up, satisfied and smiling, greeted her with a kind nod and left, with a light step and a heart at peace. From that day on, Marco continued his journey. He no longer sought approval, but balance. He had learned a precious lesson. True love does not humiliate, does not condition, does not weigh. True love builds, and when it is not found in another person, then you have to build it within yourself. And Marco, finally, had succeeded. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.